Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Innovation Exchange. Today is a very special day with me. I have a good friend from UK, and she is also French. So I love this connection. And for all of you that are watching us right now, Innovation Exchange is one of our content strategies here in Metanoia.Digital. Metanoia.Digital is a global consulting firm working with Fortune 500 companies to bring innovation and digital transformation. And Innovation Exchange is all about connecting with people from all over the world to understand the differences between, like, innovate here in Brazil, innovate in the UK, the diversity and all those different methodologies and technologies that are growing all over the world. So welcome everybody. My name is Harold Schultz Neto. You can join me on my LinkedIn or Instagram with the name under here, my username, @Harold S. Neto. And today I have Servane, as I mentioned to you. She has such a beautiful curriculum. She's such an impactful woman. And I prefer that she introduce herself. Hi, Servane.
I'm going to make it short, shall I? Yes.
Okay, sure.
So yes, as Harold, as you say, thank you for the introduction. I'm so pleased to be with you today because we just talked before the show and how funny we had met, that connection, and I learned from you a lot a while ago.
Well, thank you.
You delivered on the design sprint a course, which was so fascinating with people all over the world. So I was born in France a while ago. 27 years ago-ish. And I've traveled around, I traveled around the block, as you say. No, I lived in the Netherlands, spent some time in Brazil, and I've been settling in the UK for a certain number of years now, and I call it home. Although in the past 2 years, I've been quite frustrated not to be able to visit my colleagues and my network in many places in the world. But I've always worked in a dispersed way and with remotely. So and what I did during all these years is I've been supporting the social economy. So what it means is that I've been providing safe spaces for people we call social entrepreneurs, people who use commercial tools to run their business, but with the objective of making a social and environmental impact. And most of the time I've been doing this, I've been essentially supporting women. It just happened. It's a long story. We can always come back together and share all the kind of stories, but it's just I've been mainly supporting women, and in a company that was called Ogunte, which is something that some of you in Brazil watching might know. I mean, there's a name that's familiar to you. It's just simply because it was my Orisha, which was that spirit I was born with and given to me by someone who I know who was playing capoeira. So it's a long story, a lot of attachment to Brazil against the law. I mean, you can unearth all these. So I've been helping, I call them restless leaders, people who are really, really eager and want to make change happen because they're not satisfied with how things are running, whether it's in their country or in the world or in their community, not necessarily geographic community, but or their it could be a community of farmers or women farmers, or community of investors, also different, community of topics. And what I mainly do, if you really look at how I work with these people, is I help them use their, optimize their imagination, really dig deep and find their strength, sometimes strength they didn't even know they had, and connections, and shake well, put this in a package and create a plan. Yes, a plan to create actions and services that transform people's lives. And now understand why our lives were running in parallel, because we actually do something similar.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. So you're mentioning the design sprint course that where we met, right? And I also learned so much from you. And one of the things that struck me the most during that period was the amount of diversity that we had in there. You know, you just mentioned we had people from all over the world, and that's the power of the internet, you know, to make those global connections and all this. And it was quite awesome. There was like you empowering women with a social vein, and we had like people from I don't know, data scientists from big corporations like Cisco, you know, completely different world, you know, corporate and coding and all this. So it was amazing to me because I think that course was my first powerful experience in understanding the power of diversity when you want to build like innovative stuff, you know. And for me it's amazing how different cultures, how different backgrounds can shape new ideas, you know. It's so amazing.
Yeah, although it's always very important. We think sometimes it's diverse simply because there are people from different companies, size, or maybe they come from different countries. And then when you dig deeper, say, some of them most of them have got the same level of education, or maybe they're all potentially able-bodied, or they're all white-ish. Or there's a lot of things that I don't not saying necessarily about the course itself, which was very diverse, that in many places that where we think we are a diverse group, and actually when we dig deeper, we could have made it more maybe accessible to people who might not have full internet bandwidth, or who have issues with visual issues or hearing issues. And or maybe you have a different understanding or cultural constraints, and they can't just access this a course like this that's maybe mixed with men and women, or with concepts that might be felt as itchy back home. So there's a lot of questions when we talk about diversity. It's like, how diverse is it really, you know?
Exactly. And right here in Brazil, we're like having a huge amount of buzz because the largest startup here in Brazil, which is one of the largest fintechs all over the world, Nubank, just got into their board members, Anitta, who's a famous singer from Brazil, and she's a funk singer. Whoa. It was all over the news here because, you know, what is she doing there? You know, why is that woman there? She's not a businesswoman. You know, she's not a, she's not.
What an idea! Like,
yeah. Let me correct that. She's not the usual frame that we have for a board member. Although she's an amazing business leader, she has like millions of followers in social media. She built her career internationally by herself, you know, building a massive company around her name and her personal brand and all this. So, you know, it's crazy how we have this like frames, you know, that, you know, this type of people can be on board can be on company boards, but those can't, you know.
Yes. And the thing is that we don't think about this. It's something like this. We even discard before we even have the conversation. But tell me, she there's one word I heard. What style of music was she singing?
Funk music.
Funk. And where is it mostly? Where is it mostly emerged?
On the slums here in Brazil.
Yeah. And then you think that company is a fintech company, right?
Exactly.
She is the first person I would have called to be on a board member.
Of course,
she knows how people in some places can have difficulty accessing banking, or when they do have a bank account, sometimes they might have difficulty accessing debt or capital or etc., or being trusted to even being able to repay their debts, which is crazy. There is a good, hardworking people who are serious and honest citizens and who can just repay their debts when they can, when they're given facilities. So it makes total sense having someone on board who also has a good follower.
Exactly.
She
No,
takes boxes. Brilliant.
This discussion was quite amazing because one of the things I heard was that, people who needs banking, they also want reliability and trust from that institution. But actually, what Nubank did here in Brazil, they democratized the access to banks,
Yeah.
and they kind of like I have colleagues who didn't got an account for Nubank because they were like too big. Their accounts were like, go to a big bank because they want you. We don't want you here. We
Yeah.
want people who don't have access to banking.
Yeah.
Now, we see how much biased we are, that, we think that everybody that goes to the banking system is like the famous model of someone who might not be in the slums. And that's exactly what you're talking about,
But Harold, look, the impact of having increasing the access to a banking facility to people who are or who have been or part of a wider group that can face financial exclusion at times is that and there are many studies that have been conducted over time, and some of them was by Aflatoon and Childline. They've identified that when families, young families, and even children, when they are able at some point to have access to a savings account, they're more likely to, of course, to get out of poverty, but also to have access at some point to get better life prospects. Even if it's not just about saving money or 1 cent, one centave a day. It's to be able to place it not under your mattress, but in a banking facility, because they have just identified that the people who do that are more likely then to plan ahead and to have that kind of guarantees, which ultimately will put them out of poverty.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So you really need, it's like it's that thing about the system thinking. It's a topic never comes on its own. So when you want to do something around business, it will have an impact, positive or negative as well, onto someone else or another community. So you really, whenever someone flips their wings somewhere, it's going to have a ripple effect somewhere else.
Exactly. I remember you blew my mind once when we met in London, and we were in this amazing place that is really like a cool place. It used to be, I don't know right now with the pandemics, but it was the Shoreditch region in London. Yeah. It's a very like startup community place. So anyone who is listening to us and someday goes to London, you need to go there. Is a very like hyped place, which I liked it a lot. But when we met there, you told me something amazing. Everybody at the time was like, how can I say, praising Tom's shoes, because Tom's shoes had that idea of when you buy a pair of shoes, you send a pair of shoes to someone else that doesn't have a pair of shoes. And you blew my mind back then when you told me, hey, you know what? There are new studies telling us that their approach is actually not doing so good in the communities they're sending the shoes with, because they're kind of like disturbing the way the behavior of those communities, and that was so amazing. And inside the building, I always say that to my customers and everything, inside the building we can have amazing ideas and opinions about stuff, just like Tom's shoes. But only when you get to the reality, when you do like ethnographical research, when you connect with people that are in there, you can see the actual change that needs to be done. Yeah.
And this is what you do with Design Sprint, because you actually go and interview the people on the ground, or people who are more likely to know them. Never assume. So the thing is not, I mean, Tom Shoes have changed their ways, they've made efforts, and other companies who are in the same situation. Good intention and not enough research at the time. And indeed, it's called there's a term when you do impact measurement as well, or on these kind of deflagration. I forgot the term just right now, but bear with me. Where actually, despite your good intention, you create havoc. And this is sometimes not a natural thing that we think about, because we're also some of us have a good heart and we're going to help, but sometimes no, it doesn't help, so stop. But when we do, there are some exercises I do sometimes with clients when we do future thinking, and it's simply because simply using a topic like this, right? You're going to create this. Okay, what's the worst thing that can happen when you arrive in a community with this object? What's the good thing that can happen with this object when you arrive in a community? What is the same thing that will go on that is unlikely to change? And what is the weirdest thing that can happen with this topic? So you anticipate, you force yourself to create scenarios that are so remote from you that at some point, something will come out of that. But you have to compare notes with your mates and just share the thinking with people who are far away from you.
Yeah, that's amazing. And also for me, that's another bias that we have, to think so linearly. And you just mentioned before systems thinking, which is one of the topics that I like the most and that I study the most, is that we're so biased into the linear thinking. Of course, people that don't have shoes, they need shoes. And it's not like that. You have so many variables.
And then you ask but what kind of shoes really? And
exactly.
When do they wear shoes, or when do they not wear shoes? There's always a reason.
Exactly. There's a completely different example from this that I like a lot, is those I don't know if you heard of those hypo water gallons. It was like a designer who went to some tribe in Africa, and he realized that specific tribe, the women needed to walk like 10 miles to get to water fountains.
Yeah.
And they use buckets, and there were so many buckets, and it was heavy and all this. So he designed a new bucket with like a place for women to hold with their hands, and the gallons were like on horizontal, so they could just drag the gallons,
Right.
And it completely changed the tribe. It was so impactful. It's an amazing project. It won several design awards and made a complete impact on that community. It's really, really cool. It's an amazing project.
My question to you is, and what happened then when the press was gone?
Well, actually, the community was thriving. They were actually they could even like start planting new stuff and all this because they had more water now. They could carry more water into the community. So it made a great change.
Well, that's interesting. And what with the time that they had saved, if they had saved time, what did the women do? What did the girls do? That's what I would have asked straight away. And
that's a good question.
Maybe if the women started to benefit or have some sort of gain from it, did that change the attitude of men in the kind of water fetching habit? Because it's a gender role in some places, and some men wouldn't touch that with a barge pole. And so I wonder, did we see any change there? So that would be the question immediately you ask yourself: what else is shifting around because there's a new element in the community?
Wow, that's amazing.
Sometimes it goes wrong, like with some previous companies we mentioned. Sometimes it goes fine, or what else get dropped, or if it's easier for people to carry the water, maybe do more girls do that? And are they taken away from any other educational opportunity? Or what does it mean? What do you find on the way when you go and get water? Sadly, poor encounters, because on the way to get the water, a lot of girls or women get raped. Ideally, you want everybody to get the water so that everybody share the load and reduce the dangers, you know?
Interesting. Now you got myself scratch my head here. How can we how can companies how can companies and designers, people thinking about this, can actually see, because there might be so many variables that we cannot control maybe afterwards and all this. How can we better design our social solutions, to try to think about that? I don't think we can go throughout every single possibility. Sometimes we need to experiment, right?
There's a high level solution which people can start thinking, instead of running, for instance, some kind of if you got a large company, what we call a corporate a group, and you want to do good, and then you're going to maybe organize a challenge competition and have your people voting for the best charity of the year, which you will support. But for that charity, you ask that charity to write a proposition, and then 50 will apply, only one will win. Stop this. Let's stop that. Let's stop that.
Okay.
What's great is that actually this corporation have a lot of information available to them through all this community group, these organizations, these social justice organizations, environmental NGOs, small ones, small part, for instance, sometimes instead of having, the consultants in the global north, they could just find, they're easy to find. They're so easy to find via. In one day, you can find great organization, which you can start contacting to get that business intelligence, contacting and paying. For them, they would stick to the work they do instead of running challenges competition, which will not gonna bring them much. It's just with the kind of noise on the internet nowadays, it's not good practice for them to do that. They don't get any funds guaranteed at the end of these kind of activities, so it's not good. So forget that. Stick to what you do, and engage these charities and social enterprise who know their stuff very well, and contract them, and everybody will be helped because their beneficiaries will be helped as well. Everybody wins. So stop the PR stuff, stop the CSR campaign, forget that. Just do business with this organization.
Okay,
save time.
That's great. And how can companies understand what are the good NGOs and what are the ones that are actually making an impact? How can we filter this?
Yeah, so in many places in the world, you have some sort of incubation programs that have been put in place. You've got networks like the Impact Hub, which is everywhere in the world.
Yes.
Run by locals in every country where they are. It started in London in 2006, and in a very tall building with no lift and some holes in the wood floor. That was very hard. But then the community expanded. That means that it's like a sort of franchise, it's a network of places that really foster and grow their social economy locally. And they, of course, in each impact hub, for instance, locally will have their own networks of investors, funders, of entrepreneurs, of technical skills providers, and also the whole ecosystem locally with people who know the issues locally. So that would be the first port of call, and there are many, many others like that. So you found, okay, incubator in Kinshasa, or you will also, what you can also, so you can start from the top and see which, for instance, international aid department, what kind of large program they've founded, and then you go down towards the supply chain and see what was the sort of social enterprise network partners on the ground. You could have also, you could make a choice of not going through the largest NGOs, but follow online. Everybody, all these people are on the social media that we share every day, because it's easier for them to share information, and they're very well connected. So via, just ask.
Okay, perfect. That's the simplest way, right?
Yeah. It's amazing what happens when we ask questions.
Yes, yes. And you started mentioning your work with women, right?
Yeah.
And right now there's so many discussions about inclusion and diversity. We just talk about diversity on board members, on boardrooms. And what are the challenges that you've been seeing women live through, that they need to go through, that maybe men's don't, and how can women be more like empowered, to actually lead our businesses? We have seen an amazing, I saw an amazing report the other day talking about how the countries led by women dealt with the pandemics much better than the countries led by men.
Yeah.
And
very early. It's very early to say. We'll see the outcome in a year or
sure.
two.
It was already there. It is my unique source of information. The perception right now is this one. But also I see a lot of companies thriving with women leadership, like AMD, which is a technological company, once got a woman leadership. It went to a turnaround, an amazing turnaround. It's a company that I admire a lot. So, I see there's power to it, but there's also a lot of prejudgments still. And so talk a little bit about that. I know it's a huge topic,
Yes,
it could
How
be...
long do you have? And my cat is waiting to be fed at some point, so she's going to be making some noise in the background. That's a female cat, and I want to eat. So the man versus women, it's one of the problems we have, actually, and it's one that surfaces a lot. So I'm going to tell you a story. There's years ago, I was doing some work with a European body called the European Women's Lobby. They're a think tank based in Brussels and active in many countries in the world. And they started a research. So, okay, what's the state of social entrepreneurship, women's led social entrepreneurship in Europe? And I'll come to answer your question. Don't worry.
Okay.
So we start, there is a research done in 13 countries over in total. At the end of the research, 13 countries were explored. You say, what are the issues there? And I'll tell you why it's relevant to your question. First, because we were talking about women, the group women, which is a large group and very diverse group. And then women in social entrepreneurship. And I did the UK one. It's a gathering research that has been established and interviewing some social entrepreneurs, women leading some social enterprises. And I've asked some of them, say, what do you think? What's the struggle here? I said, well, imagine there are different glass ceilings. There's a lot of glass ceilings. First, you're a woman. Then you're a woman in business. Then you're a woman in social business. So that was the first interviewed woman, who was called June O'Sullivan from an organization called London Early Years Foundation, who's doing crazy great work on education with young children. Fantastic. And then I interviewed someone else called Erika Brotnock, who was doing some tech as well, educational tech. And it's a Black woman. And she said, well, there's a fourth glass ceiling. Imagine you are a Black woman in social enterprise. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we don't realize, is that there are several layers of complexity and battles and hurdles that some individuals have to go through. And then you can add more than that. Imagine you're a disabled Black woman in social enterprise, or imagine you are you can add maybe sort of a gay disabled Black women in social enterprise, or then you could do all the possible combination that you want. So there's no such thing as men against women. There's a variety of, there's a complexity that is there, that exists, that we carry as ourselves, but we sometimes only decide to see one group against the rest of the world. That one group is often seen as the default, which would be that, you know, a sort of relatively well-educated white man.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is that if we take that as a default, we miss the point, because it doesn't reflect the reality of life of our communities. And only a group have got something to say, or have got the connections, and if they network only between themselves, then they will, you know, when you keep using the same washing machine water all over the time to wash your clothes, at some point something's not going to go well, right? You need to drain the pipes, you need to put some fresh water, you need to dry your clay, you need to diversify that stuff to get some fresh air and some clean stuff in. So you need to mix up. So the problem sometimes is we ask the wrong questions. And if we wanted to save some time, we should actually look at what is the intersectional question that we should be asking here. What is it that we're not saying simply because we have more of the same thinking or doing, always the same, and that's the problem. There are also issues with groups of white women leaders who don't really diversify within their group. Okay, so there are a lot of issues around that. There's problems around funding. Where is the investment going? So yes, indeed, men are overfunded compared to women. Black women less funded, over-mentored, but not funded enough. Now, after a year or two of reckoning of the kind of, we thought there would be some changes in the air, and maybe there were. Everybody put a black square on their website to say they were supporting, the Black Lives Matter movement. Nothing wrong in supporting, but you need to come up with the goods. How much have you changed internally? Who else has accessed the board, the decision-making place? How people are really consulted? Do people with a neurodiverse experience have a say as well, or can say what they're actually living when they work for you or with you? Do you make efforts in flexible working, not just working from home or at the office, but do you know what it means for some of your employees to work from home? Because maybe some of your employees have to take on the childcare and they can't work from home because it's not done, or they haven't got the space, or the internet is crap, or maybe they are submitted to violence at home. So it's not really cool to be stuck at home, or even being proposed this kind of thing. So it's never one-way system. It's always ever so complex. So one way to change things is to understand and agree that it's going to be complex. You need to embrace complexity.
Perfect point, Servane. Now, I'm thinking something. Help me understand that based on what you said. I see companies like Y Combinator, for example. It's a huge accelerator from Silicon Valley. They now have this Black founded fund, where they help companies that are founded by Black people to get funding, join their accelerator program, etc. Do you think that's a way to go, or that would be like more like reinforcing the default?
No, it's
no. You just mentioned.
But again, it's much more complex than that. It's who is on the investment committee? Who is? What kind of fund are we talking about? Do the funds that are distributing only for, promising a potential unicorns? That means never happens. or do we have different products, different asset classes, different types of funding, different do we have patient capital coming up, or do people need to make a return very quickly? What kind of funding are we talking about? For what? And what are the facilities as well that are being shared? So again, but the more people are funded and kind of turn around and have a success, the more maybe they will be in position to fund other people. So we need to think of that supply chain. But it's very important to start with something. But again, who makes the funding decision? This is very important. So I see this is one example. It's quite extreme because not everybody in the position of Y Combinator, they've got a huge track record and have got access to network. A lot of, for instance, corporate, groups start their own foundation. And again, a lot of mentoring, but not enough funding. It's crazy. Not enough efforts are made to really, really go and look for the organization in the communities. It's not sexy. They don't have swish workplaces. They live in, I see here because I live in North London in a community that has seen many struggles called Tottenham. Some people who play football might have heard of it, the Spurs team. I'm in blue, but I don't have anything to do with it. and again, Tottenham is changing, but Tottenham's got so much to offer. But yeah, it was never just sexiest place where you could start your business in, because it's not central London. But the wealth of diversity of thoughts and entrepreneurial spirit that you've got, people are resilient. So there is a lot of things that could have been done instead of just property development that chase people out of the environment. Same problem as some places in Brazil we've seen a lot of time, right?
Yeah, gentrification, right?
Well, yeah, it's
almost like
there's that, and there's some choices, political choice, short-term political choices.
Yeah. I got a little worried with what you said before. I kind of like fit in the default model that you mentioned, well-educated white man. How can I
cool.
How can I break?
I'm not black either, right?
Yeah. So how can I break the bias that I might have throughout my cultural background and all of this, and everyone that might be listening to us? I'm sorry.
We will have the bias. I have. Yes.
Yeah. How can we? I don't know. Maybe minimize that, or I don't know. How can I avoid? Prejudgments and excluding people and all this.
And you thought you were doing gym every day. This is a gym to reduce, or to you will never be free of bias because it's so ingrained.
I can tell you easily.
I'd always be careful about how I say things, because I'm also a work in progress.
Okay.
For instance, my son is mixed race with a Breton and a Jamaican background. And I still find myself having some racist thoughts.
Okay, I get it.
So, because it's just so in there, and I'm not immune. I hope that won't be cut out and, just a 5-second snippet. But this is the truth. It's so ingrained. And I work hard in that sector, but it doesn't, I'm not immune of bias. So what do? I do my homework. I read, I listen to people. I go and see different formats, films, songs, a widest variety of thoughts as possible, just to learn. And it's not up to them to educate me. I have to do the work, right?
Yeah, perfect.
And nothing's going to change until we have done the work and we've challenged people into the way they think. it's like a design sprint every single minute of the day.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
that onto us. So we've got to do the work, right?
yeah. So design thinking was so like a before and after for me, because the first project I did was a social impact project.
Yeah.
It never finished, which ended up not being a social impact. It was just a learning experience.
That's good.
But it was so impactful. I went to a school nearby the city where I live, in a very poor area that is actually an invasion. So there used to be a farm, but a lot of poor people didn't have anywhere to go. So they invaded that farm, and suddenly it became like a new neighborhood.
Escorted. That invaded. Yeah. Escorted. Yeah, escorted. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And it became a huge neighborhood.
Wow.
And the school that I went to do my ethnographical research, it was placed in the last street where you could go with safety, because after that there was like a drug organized crime, and drug dealers dominated the area. So you couldn't go with your car over there unless you have like the passport to reach there. And when I got there, I see so many different kids from my childhood, and stories like of, this kid got raped by his uncle, and this kid doesn't have what to eat some days, and all these crazy stories. And I was like, oh my God, this is such a different background from my story. Empathy and ethnographical research can be so powerful to change your mindset about what is going on around the world. And the other day I was doing a UX design exercise with my students.
Yeah.
And it's a very cool exercise where you show something in the screen, on a computer screen for people, and they have 5 seconds to say, what is the product all about, who are the customers, and what is the call to action. It's a very famous UX design exercise. And I put the screen of Netflix, and they were like, oh, Netflix, everybody knows Netflix, why are you using Netflix? And I said, hey, wait, Netflix has only like 250 million customers all over the world. We're talking about a population of 8 billion almost. So you have 7.7 billion people that doesn't know Netflix or not customers. Yeah. We have 4 billion people that are still not connected to the internet. So it's not everybody knows Netflix.
I love that.
So biased. We're so biased. It was crazy. It was a very funny exercise.
When you say everybody, generally it means I.
Exactly. Me and my group.
And anything that's not I is people.
Yeah.
People say who? Yeah, that's exactly. It's true. And sometimes it's just like closing our desktop or laptops or whatever you it's actually not working like a human being like that, not watching my feet on my screen. It's raising tall and going towards someone else, observing. I've got a school just opposite me, and the amount of stories you have just by observing for 10 to 15 minutes when it's school drop or school pickup time. Again, purely based on assumptions. If I don't talk to, I'm just looking at through the window. There's some joy, there's some sadness, there's some violence as well, some laughter. What the people in the street don't see, because at street level, you've got gates for safeguarding principle. But once a week, behind the gates, which I can see because I'm on the first floor, there is a food bank there. So people come and collect food if they don't have any other means. And it's done very discreetly. I just happen to see it because I'm, on one floor up, and I can see what's going on in the schoolyard. So many stories, and it's just a snapshot. But you learn so much by just observing, by just observing, or the step after is by, participatory observation, or observatory participation. That's the step. And then you can mingle and try and listen. Just listen.
Just listen. Exactly. That's very powerful. So, Servane, do you have any like cases that you worked with that are like remarkable that we can get inspired by?
Oh, they're all the
Of
first.
course, you have several actually, but
I've got several.
name a few.
So what happens is, if people follow me on LinkedIn, I post virtually every day.
Cool.
Every day. And I always flash out on companies that are remarkable, or people who are needing connections. So something you can engage with straight away. At the moment, I work with, there are 4 companies that I actually do some work with. There is one that's called Purple Shoots, and they're based in Wales. And they are working with people who are underfunded, who have had issues in life. For instance, they might have lost a job, and following that, there might have been a cycle of debts, and these people have got poor credit record. And then there is a sort of cycle of poverty that follows, and it's very hard for them to get access to cash. For instance, if they have a little business idea, micro business idea, or business idea, they can't get credit anywhere because of that poor banking traction history. And this company, Purple Shoots, take the risk to lend these people some money to create a business. So it's not just lending to individuals, it's lending to a coming business. Nobody trusts them, and they take, so the Purple Shoots takes the risk. And they know that when they do that, these people are more likely to have an impact. So they've helped hundreds of people. And people are starting some little cottage businesses, and immediately when they do that, it impacts positively on their family and also their wider community. So you really, I can't remember, for one pound invested, you get 3 or 4 return, which is fantastic, and social return on investment. So there's
I'm sorry to cut you, but this example reminds me of something that I was mentioning the other day in my social media. Yeah. Is that I'm part of a group of consultants that came out of Singularity University, which is a very famous educational hub nowadays to talk about exponential technologies, future, and all this. And we have a concept over there that says that, most companies, their business model is not actually what we say it is. For instance, healthcare system. Is actually not the healthcare system, is the sick care system, because you can only join the healthcare system if you're sick.
Yes.
And the same thing happens with banking. Is not the financial system, is the debt system, because banks only make money out of people's debt, and what you're talking to me is actually the financial system, is when you finance good ideas so they can bring more productivity into the world. And most of the financial system doesn't work like that. They work with debt and credit, and you get stuck on a snowball of debt and poverty.
And it's actually based on a very poor definition of risks.
Exactly.
When you think about it. So that's one example. Another example, there's something that I just started supporting as well. It's called Your Own Place. And that's a company that offers training to people, training around all sorts of skills for life, and digital skills as well, for people to ensure that they keep their tenancy, or they keep their home. This is to prevent homelessness. So make sure how to communicate, to reach for solution, to how to access the basic digital skills, but all sorts of things, that a combination of things that make people more confident and better prepared in anticipating what might come around, and also keep their tenancy. And then for housing association or local authorities, better to have people who've been trained like this. It costs them less money to have that kind of support in place. than to evict someone. To evict someone cost them directly like 27,000 pounds to evict one person. Can you imagine?
Wow.
For that
Wow.
price, this company, Your Own Place, can train 70 people. Can you imagine the
Wow.
impact? Yeah. Now, and that's just before day one on homelessness, the eviction day. But then what happens next? If you've got children, some children might be either sleep on street, imagine the trauma and the impact on that, or put into care for different reasons and many different scenarios. That has an enormous cost. This is taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
And as a community cost. And that has a traumatic and mental health cost, let alone the health service or the sick service. Do you remember? All of this is very important to take into account. And so what is it that we can do to prevent that to happen? And these solutions sometimes are not always easy to evidence, but when a funder or an investor or corporate foundation really want to do good or increase that wallet share, they better work on these topics, because ultimately, when people are safe with a house, they've got the head to start thinking better, to be able to work better. When they work better, they make money, they become customers. Do you understand the link?
That's amazing. That for me is a clear example of the systems thinking that we mentioned. One eviction have so many branches and feedback loops that bring back to the system. Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing
so
project.
I could go on and on and on, but and again, this is just examples in the UK, but there are places in India, all sorts of organizations that prevent gender-based violence online. There it's just loads of them. You name it. I never was able to stick to one topic.
Yeah, that's cool.
But that variety of topics as well is important, because it helps inform, I pass the message or connect them with each other, and I provide technical skills, but also coaching support, which is, they are the experts, and my work is to really help them blossom, listen to them, have them feel in a safe space to have even more ideas and to do something about these ideas.
Amazing. So everybody that is listening to us that wants to do some corporate responsibility work, and really get real about it and not just greenwash stuff. So please connect with Servane. I'll leave. Yeah, I'll leave all her connections and links. Please send me the link of those projects, because
yes, I will, certainly. Yeah, you can illustrate that. So, but you mentioned the corporate social responsibility. For me, that shouldn't be. It is marketing. It is basic work. It is core. That thinking about looking at the impact you will have in the short and long term. You have to think not about your shareholders, but your stakeholders. That's so important, because ultimately, if you don't, this is going to backlash sooner or later. We'll see many stories, and sadly, some investments have been poorly made. A lot of cash is injected without thinking about these things, and the community damage is huge. Political damage is huge. So we all have a responsibility ultimately to take care of these things, and it's not extra work. It is business.
Yeah, you mentioned political impact. I'm the director of an NGO here in Brazil that works in a huge neighborhood. Is like the biggest slum in São Paulo, and we just got a new project that is so beautiful. It's a house that gets, when kids get a certain age, they need to get out of the foster home.
Yeah.
So where do they go? And in some cases you have disabled kids. So this house, we take disabled kids that got off their time in the foster home. And we got this project because the other NGO that was doing that was taking the money. Can you believe that? It's crazy. When you propose yourself to do some social impact stuff, you know, how can you think about, getting the money for you?
Yeah,
it
that
doesn't
again,
make any sense
also,
for
this
me.
is not a clear cut that, all these networks, there's always some bad wolves in there. We're not immune.
Yes,
We're not
yes.
immune. Yeah.
It's so
But
sad. It's so
I really
sad.
want to hear more about that, because there's a lot of movement around these transition stages after something that has been institutionalized, but for some reason you need a cutoff date, simply for budgeting reason. The local authority can't take it on, and I had to choose a date. But again, that has an impact. And there's a lot, it is where the community and social entrepreneurs and also more traditional businesses can come in and see what is it that we can put together, that we can put in place where everybody wins. I'm not naive, business do this for business, fine, okay, but
Of course.
engaging into maybe apprenticeships for these young people, if they're disabled, whatever the disability is, though surely there are some schemes that you could put in place where they can access skills for work, and or they might be neurodiverse, so maybe they see things that other people don't see, spot patterns that other people don't see. So where is, for instance, is it a communal, a coordinated approach to that transition after the local authority has done its job? And
Exactly.
eventually the local authority will fall back on its feet by listening and commissioning things differently.
Yeah.
So I would love
One
to
of
continue the conversation on that.
one of the girls that we got there, because it ended up becoming like an inclusion home that we call here in Brazil, to make inclusion for people that are disabled to get back to society, and expanded from beyond the foster home case. And one of the kids that we got there, it's a woman. She spent 30 13 years locked inside her bedroom,
Yeah.
because she had a mental issue, and the
Yeah.
family couldn't work with her mental issue.
Yeah.
So when she got there, she couldn't even move her hands. She was like
Yeah.
all like, I don't know how can I say it. She was like all tense, and nobody could touch her. It was quite sad, so sad. And in like 2 months working with us, interacting with everybody over there, she was now going to the supermarket, buying groceries.
Wow.
In like 2 months. We were like, wow, that's so amazing. She was talking to the camera, and talking to me. It was so beautiful.
So Harold, the key was the interaction, the social interaction?
The social interaction, she went from like being locked on her room to now sharing a room with someone, and eating meals with everybody, so it was so different for her, and now she was being able like to cross the street, get to the market. Of course, there's a market near the home, but she was like buying some stuff for herself. It was so amazing,
Harold, you say something very interesting, that you it's a concept to help, for instance, people with disabilities come back to society. When you think about it, they didn't go anywhere. They were there. Society went away. Turn it back. So the should be, what is it that we need to do with society, whatever that means, to make it come back? And you turn the focus and the burden of responsibility and homework to the others, not to the people with disability who would love to be maybe in another position. And they didn't go anywhere. This is the time.
Yeah, perfect point.
And then we create a new product. Woohoo! Exactly.
No, and you see, she has like her own budget from the government that she can spend monthly. So we, the organization, we take care of those budgets for each one of them. But we are also giving them the money so they can start doing the things that they want and they like. And in the end, we're making like an economy strive, with
you
them.
take them as adults.
Exactly.
Just having that banking facility, but they can function as adults, which is
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But this is really funny. Sometimes the whole shift doesn't need a lot of marketing budget or design thinking budget or whatever consultant. It's just what is working, what's going on here? And if we flip what we see on its head, what is it that is actually happening? And then you get okay. If it's not the disabled people with disabilities who went away, they stayed there all the time. What do we need to do to make society come back?
Yeah, exactly.
Flip the ideas, yeah, on their head. I love doing that.
Wow. Well, that's an amazing conversation, Servane. We could go like for me forever with this topic. We had so much before, like plan for this talk, you know, all this connection with investors and all this. Maybe we can arrange another.
Yeah, we covered a lot. We covered
a lot, and it will be amazing to have you on board once again later on the show. It's so amazing to talk to you. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
I thank for all the audience that was with her with us today, and thanks a lot. I hope you all of you are impacted by everything that Servane says. That is so mind blowing. You know, sometimes we're so like, let's go straight to the point, make business, make money, you know, innovate on that end, and to just like bring more products to the world. But actually, what are the products that the world is needing? I think that's the question that Servane just posed us. You know, what are people needs? You know, we have seen so many diverse backgrounds that Servane mentioned, and all these people have different needs. And that's where we should be, you know, not inside our own heads, inside our own buildings, building stuff that maybe nobody wants, or that is going to just make more use of the money of the default character that we just mentioned in this call, you know.
No, it's great. There's enough to do. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Servane.